Hello everyone, I'm Tom, this is Arnold.
Hello.
This is episode 3 of our little catch-up movie club, whatever you want to call it. The films today are The Sacred Spirit, 2 Doctor Who stories featuring Sylvester McCoy, 2 Norman J. Warren films, and Phenomena. So I'm going to start with The Sacred Spirit. Written and directed by Chimere Garcia Ibarra, starring Elam Arquez, Nacho Fernandez, Rocio Ibanez, and Joanna Valverde. Overall, I really liked it. I really did like it. Very slow moving film. Very sort of... Sometimes it can feel like is anything actually happening in this film. But the payoff at the end, which I won't spoil because you should watch it, is so good. Like, the payoff, yeah, I'll stick with the word payoff. I won't say anything else. Because it turns the film into something where you're like, well, what is going on? To something quite dark and something quite disturbing. And just... I loved it, man. I really did actually quite like it.
Is it set in Egypt?
No. There is... Well, I'll get to that. It's set in Spain. It was actually made on location on Elche, Spain. Filmed on location, and all the actors, which I mentioned previously, are all from that city. I did watch a behind the scenes, and the director, he likes normal people, which I think is a really good way to put that. Like, because everyone in the film does feel normal. They feel like people you could meet. But yeah, it's a really sort of like, I don't want to say home movie, but it feels like a film which is made with friends. And they just had something to say.
And they had a good time making
and
the film.
I
and
mean,
you can really get a sense of that.
I mean, some of the behind the scenes stuff is like, it's everyone... There's the thing that I love about these films as well, there's no ego with the actors. There's nothing there because, like, obviously, they can't compare it to anything. This is their first film. But yeah, general thoughts about it. Really good. It's really slow moving, like I say, but worth it in the end. The plot is basically you have a girl has gone missing. This is like before the film starts, if you know what I mean. But a girl's gone missing and she's got a twin, and they're trying to find this girl, and the uncle of the girl who's missing, he's part of like a UFO group. And see, it's kind of hard because it does, like I say, it is slow moving, so that is basically the plot. Like, I don't want to say too much in case I give it away. But yeah, it's like... But the main thing is like, what seems to be a big theme in this film is like groups and religion and spiritual beliefs and stuff like that. And not just spiritual groups, there's talk about workers' unions, there's like a hiking group, there's a character says, oh, I have to pick up a load of dirt and put it on my mum's bed because she believes it wards off spirits. There's a lot of stuff like that. And to give slight a hint to what happens is like, it's how a person's belief can be corrupted, and how what they believe might be right is not right. Like, in no sense of the way is what they're doing right. Which does tie in to the girl who's gone missing. That's kind of what I'll put out there because I don't want to give away too much. Like, and the thing what I like it does is that you start to think, is this like real? Is some of this spiritual stuff real? Like what they're talking about? Because the uncle is like part of a UFO group. Like, they believe that UFOs exist.
Yeah.
And the guy who's in charge... Oh, that's another thing to add to the plot. The guy who's in charge of the UFO group dies, so he sort of becomes the leader. But it's not really about that. It's just stuff that's in the film.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like... I don't want to say what I'm saying doesn't matter, but because it is slow move... Well, it does matter, but it's not like... I can't be like, oh, he dies, so he takes over and he does this and does this and does this, because it's not about that. You know what I mean? It's about it's about beliefs and all that stuff. Slight bit of surrealism and some weird kind of moments. There's a very Lynchian sort of thing about this. I wonder how many times we've mentioned David Lynch in our videos. But because there's a bit where like there's a guy who's got one of those voice boxes.
Yeah.
And that's a very sort of Lynchian thing where it's just like a bit of a weird character.
Soy Julio. conmigo, por favor.
You've got a woman who's like a background character, and she's got like an eye patch, but it's like a flesh eye patch, so she just looks like she's got skin.
A bit like Kleb from Russia with Love.
Yeah. There's a guy who's like slightly badly dressed as a sailor. Like, he's not like dressed up as a sailor, he's got a sailor hat on and all
it's
that.
like ill-fitting.
Yeah. There's a woman who like kind of reminds me of Laura Palmer's mum, but without the whole depression thing. Yeah, there's actually, but this is another thing about beliefs and that, because there's a really lovely moment where an hour and 20 minutes in I put, where there's a guy who's in the UFO group, and he talks about like being accepted and how you know, this group of people he's come to admire and becomes friends with, how much he's not alone anymore, and you know, just what this little group, and because as well, a slight spoiler, there's a moment where they try to contact aliens and they all have to get together, and he says like, even if nothing happens, I'm just so glad I've met you all. And it's like, that's a really nice moment. And like I say, that moment later on in the film, you realise like, oh god, I feel so fucking bad for that guy.
Ha sido muy importante para mí, porque yo lo he pasado muy mal, por culpa de esto. A veces me he sentido solo. Yo quería compartir estas palabras con vosotros, por si sucede lo que sea que vaya a suceder, porque no quiero quedarme con esto dentro. Os quería dar las gracias. Gracias, de verdad.
And the director, see, I should have mentioned this to start with, but the director describes it as a domestic science fiction, which I think is a great, great a way to put it. I think that's pretty much everything I've got to say about the film. But overall, like, if you do get the chance to watch it because, yeah, it's yeah, if you're into stuff which is bang bang bang, you're gonna think it's really boring. But considering that the actors have no previous experience, and the director, I don't think the director's done a feature film yet. I think this might be his first. I don't know if I mentioned it was also written by him. Yeah, Sacred Spirit from 2021, very good film.
Astral, hasta fundirnos con la totalidad.
So I watched last week another Doctor Who serial. It's Delta and the Bannerman. It was directed by Chris Clough and written by Malcolm Cole, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's a similar premise to Paradise Towers, where the Mel just wants a holiday as usual, and they arrive at this planet, and it turns out to be this sort of planet where it's like a holidays world tour thing, where they can travel in time and go into various holiday places across the universe. And it turns out as soon as they arrive, they're the 10 billionth customer.
Oh, good.
And they're greeted by Ken Dodd.
Yes, man.
Ken Dodd.
Recently, well, I say recently, passed away about 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, you know that. Proper famous Liverpudlian.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just interjected there. Carry on, my friend.
It's alright. You're giving me a lot to think about there.
What was you going to say that Ken Dodd's a piece of
Ken
shit?
Dodd was actually the 15th. No, I'm only joking.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Apart from that whole plot, we've also got Delta, which is the name of the character on the run. She's essentially a shimmering queen. That's a war with the Bannerman.
Oh.
And the whole story starts off essentially in a battlefield, and she narrowly escapes to this planet where conveniently she meets the Doctor and Mel, and they travel back in time to 1950s Disneyland. But instead of Disneyland, they do a traditional Doctor Who where it's actually Wales they land instead of, because obviously the BBC would not have the money at all to go to Disneyland. And it's just essentially the Doctor and Mel try and help the Shimmering Queen, because she also is carrying a baby.
Oh.
And they're the last two Shimmerans.
Oh my god.
So
I'm the last of the Shimmerans.
and the last of the Shimmerans. I'm 107 years old. No, and it's okay. It's fine. There's not really much you can talk about in terms of the plot. It's very straightforward. This sort of serial is a sort of love affair with the 50s, because the soundtrack is essentially 50s cover songs, but with 80s synthesizers. So a very weird sort of time. But yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Like, there's bits I like. There's a bit where at the end of like episode 1, there's the reveal of the baby, and it's like a really well done model, and it almost looks like something you'd see from Alien from 1979. And what I find weird about that, not the model itself, but in the second episode, the baby starts growing, and it's such a jarring process, because you've got this impressive model of the baby, and then in the second episode, they actually have a real baby painted in green, and it's such a pathetic progression. It's embarrassing, man. And yeah, it's weird. And the baby has this ability to scream, and it's basically like a sonic sort of boom where everyone's like, ah.
Like Black Bolt from Doctor Strange 2.
You've got like a plot where there's a mechanic called Billy, and he falls in love with the Shimmering Queen, Delta, and and there's a moment where he tries to become a Shimmeran by taking this weird pill, and at the end he goes off to her to a new planet and starts a new family. It's weird, man. And then you've got like another plot where you've got two Americans looking for a satellite that's crashed, but it's actually the tour bus that's landed in Wales. And but that whole plot has nothing to do with the story, and I think they were there because they're two very old actors that were massive in the 50s. I can't remember the name of the actors, but I think because Jonathan Nathan Turner, who was the producer at the time of this era of Doctor Who, hired them just for a publicity sort of stunt. There's also other characters. You've got like a really charming beekeeper character. There's like theories that he could be like a secret Time Lord, but that's just fan fiction nonsense. Oh, we've also got Rachel, which is essentially the substitute companion. Precursor to Ace. Bit of a tomboy. She likes to ride motorcycles. Which is really weird because you've got Mel, and like if she's not doing anything, what's the point of Mel? Which is funny, but I think because Andrew Carmer, who was the script editor at the time, didn't really know what to do with Mel, and you could really see with this serial. So I think he thought, well, let's put Mel to the side and we'll see what this Rachel's like, because she was potentially going to be the new companion, and until Ace came along. Oh yeah, I got to talk about the villain. The villain played by Don Henderson. Does that ring a bell?
Don Henderson rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you what other films he's in, but I can't remember. He plays the villain called Gavrock.
Gavrock?
Yeah, sounds like Davros, to be honest.
God.
Yeah. Honestly, I think he's probably one of the best things about that story, because everyone's just sort of there having a good time. It's fairly comical. It's very upbeat. But him, he plays it so straight that he's pretty much the edge of this story, where, you know, there's a bit where the tour bus is repaired, and they're about to go off, and he shoots a rocket at them, and he basically kills, like, I think all the passengers inside. And it's very offbeat in terms of the whole vibe of the storyline. And it's just like, it kind of felt it felt forced, and it was a bit like, was that sort of put in just to sort of change the mood of the storyline? Because it was a bit too sort of, you know, upbeat and campy. But there's a bit where he's talking to the Doctor, and he's eating raw meat, and it's just great, man. And I think that was his own idea, Don Henderson's idea.
Your puny flag, your appeals to fair play and justice, huh?
And I think it came with the idea of having like webbed hands, and his eyebrows like positioned in a certain way, And you can tell he was really committed to this role, and I think he was probably one of the best things about that story. Is there anything else to say?
Did you say his name was Gavrok?
Gavrok.
Gavrok sounds like a genre of rock music for people named Gavin.
Yeah, it's just, not great. I'd say it's probably the weakest of the season so far. I mean, we've had Tom and the Rani, and that was a shit show.
It sounds like seems padded.
Yeah.
As if like they probably could have done it in 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah. And like the padding, especially with the whole plot with, the Billy the mechanic wanting to settle down with the Shimmering Queen and stuff like that. There's not many great performances. Sylvester still hasn't really sort of
became the Doctor.
Hasn't had his Doctor Who moment. And yeah, I like Rachel. That's about it.
Cool.
Dragonfire, the final serial in season 24 of Doctor Who, written by Ian Briggs, who would go on to write one of the best serials, in my opinion, Curse of Fenric. So the Doctor receives a mysterious tracking signal on the trading planet Iceworld.
Whoa, wow.
I know. And when they arrive in Iceworld and they meet Sabalon Glitz.
I've never heard of him.
Which was a character from season 23 in the Trial of a Time Lord season. Sabalon Glitz, man. What? Why did they bring him back? I don't know.
I hope he makes an appearance in the 60th.
He's enough.
No, okay.
That's all I want to say. Yeah. Isn't he? There was an article, apparently, like, someone thought he died, but he didn't, and he had to make, like, a Twitter account just to tell the whole world that he's still alive. Weird, man.
Dragonfire is the first appearance of Ace, isn't it?
It is.
I'm
glad you said that.
I think I've actually seen bits of Dragonfire.
You must have seen, like, the clips on YouTube.
Is the one? No, I think I watched at least part 1 and 2. Does one of the serials, does one of the episodes end with the Doctor hanging on?
Literally a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and they use that footage again in the name of the Doctor.
Yes. So they meet Sabalon Glitz, and what are you doing here, Sabalon? And Sabalon is in search for a lost treasure in Iceworld, and it's guarded by a dragon, hence the name Dragonfire.
Whoa.
Hey. What I like about this story is I love it when Doctor Who starts off with an interior TARDIS scene, and it's sort of setting up, you know what I mean? And it's like there's nothing really special about the scene. It's just sort of like it's the build up.
Yeah.
So what are they going to explore this time in this episode? It's a lot better than Delta, that's for damn sure. I think the storyline it's basically about this guy called Kane, and he's a criminal imprisoned on Iceworld, and he's trying to create an army. And he takes in loads of people, wipes their memories, freezes them in cryogenic stasis, and he's trying to create this army to go back to the original planet where he committed the crimes in and basically take over. And yeah, like you mentioned, we see Ace for the first time, and honestly, Sophie Aldred, I mean, not the best performance, but it's a very promising start in her career. And yeah, I really liked it. There's not really much happening. It's more so the interaction of characters. I think when Ace meets the Doctor in the cafe, you see her as a waitress, and there's a weird sort of background explanation how she got into Iceworld, because she's from Earth originally, and she talks about how she created an experiment using nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin?
Yeah.
I got it right.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was a time storm, and she arrives in Iceworld. I don't know. It's weird at first how that was the justification as why she's there, but it's sort of revealed later in Curse of Fenric, which is a sort of nice tie-in, which I really like. But yeah, as soon as they first meet, they get on as if they've been traveling for a while. It's weird. They've got such natural chemistry. You can really tell. Even with Ace and Mel, they got on really well. It's like Ace sort of takes Mel in, like, I'll protect you, you're the sort of damsel in distress, and it's sort of like the antithesis of a companion. trope. Yeah, it's all right. My biggest problem with this story is, like I said earlier, it's just a studio bound story. Gets very dull. The set pieces are okay, considering the limited budget, but it does get a bit boring just looking at just fake ice, and that's it really. Yeah, the serial, it's fine. The ending, I think, is very rushed, because Kane finally realizes that the planet he wants to go back to is gone, because he's been stranded in this ice world planet for 3,000 years, and the way they deal with his character is because Kane he has to survive in sub-zero temperature, and he basically disables the generators, and he commits suicide because there's no point, and it's so awkward. But there's a really nice bit where when as soon as he dies, there's a nice little practical effect of his face melting, very reminiscent to Raiders of the Lost Ark style. And I was really surprised to see something like that in Doctor Who, because it is very graphic. Also, this is the last story to feature Mel, and the way she leaves is a bit random and very abrupt. And Mel's like, "Oh, I've had enough, Doctor. I think I'll better be going off my own way." And Doctor's like, "What?" But it kind of makes up for it, because there's a really nice Doctor speech, and it's like, "Oh, that's nice." It's like, "Oh, that's okay, Mel. You don't forget me or anything." And it's like, "Oh, that's nice." And then obviously Ace is like, "Oh, Mel goes, "Oh, where's Ace gonna be going?" And he goes, "Well, she can travel with me." And then that's where we get Ace, and that's where we get, last 2 seasons of Peak Who.
You're playing a dangerous game, Candyman!
The reason why it was very out of, like, what the hell, why is Mel leaving? Because there wasn't really, like, any hints of her getting a bit like, well, I'm getting a bit sick now, I've been doing this for a while, I kind of want my own sort of life now. There wasn't really any of that, which was weird. Yeah, so her leaving, I mean, I understand why she had to leave, because there was nothing really she could do with how she was written in that, but yeah, but I can't really complain, because we had Ace, and Ace was just a great addition, and if in my opinion, it brought back Doctor Who to a much more interesting sort of era in terms of character development, especially with Ace.
There are worlds out there where the sky is burning, where the seas asleep and the rivers dream. People made of smoke and cities made of song. Somewhere there's danger, somewhere there's injustice, and somewhere else the tea's getting cold. Come on, Ace, we've got work to do.
Far below the surface of a sub-zero planet, hidden in the freezing mists, something is watching.
Inseminoid, directed by Norman J. Warren, written by Nick and Gloria Mayley, starring Robin Clark, Jennifer Ashley, and Stephanie Beacham. Overall, not a good film, but interesting, because it's basically a British rip-off of Alien. But apparently they said that it wasn't a rip-off of Alien, but I don't believe this. I reckon this is a bit of a way to sort of get more publicity for this film, because they said it wasn't a rip-off of Alien, but Fox, who released Alien, wanted to see the film just in case it was a rip-off, and apparently Fox was like, "No, it's not a rip-off." But that could be something that Norman J. Warren made up to make the film a bit better, and maybe sort of get away from the Alien rip-off, but it basically is an Alien rip-off. Basic plot is you have these scientists on a planet. They find like an ancient cave and awaken a demon, and one of the crew gets inseminated, hence the name Inseminoid.
I've never heard of it.
The alien looks fucking ridiculous, man.
What does it look like?
I've got a perfect example of what it looks like. I wrote it down. Imagine a Yeti from Doctor Who mixed with the Fly from David Cronenberg. That's what it looks like. Everyone get ready. This is what the alien looks like. Fucking ridiculous, isn't it? It's such a fucking cop-out. I would have preferred the ridiculous alien, but she gets inseminated by the alien, and she just goes around killing people, and I'm like, that's such a cop-out. I wanted to see a shitty alien running about a fucking salt mine killing people, but nah, it's just a person with a big boil on her head or something. That's basically
Is that
it.
it?
That's it. Like, that's basically it. I put it. It's not really shocking by today's standards, but maybe in the time it was. But even the kills aren't very graphic. There's one graphic bit which they play like twice, is where she gets inseminated, and like, it's just fucked up. I will give it credit. I was half an hour in, and I really was expecting something really bad, something really boring, really crap. Nothing's good about it. Everyone's boring and it's all crap, but it's not. It's actually okay for what it is, but obviously you need to go into it with that certain mindset of like, this is bad. But honestly, like, it looks all right. It doesn't look too bad. There's some great little like shots on, like, I don't know if it is good. It's something I like. It's like that 70s look. Imagine Doctor Who with a bigger budget, and it's just sort of, it just looks better. A good way to describe it: if someone were to parody an 80s science fiction film from Britain, it would be this. If you know what I mean. This is what they'd take the piss out of. Yeah, that's basically Inseminoid. It's fine. It's just a typical slasher film crap.
A reality. Inseminoid. A far from human birth.
So the next one, which I watched as well, which was actually 6 years after Inseminoid, Bloody New Year. This was written by Fraser and Hayden Pierce, so another not a wife and husband duo, but a father and son duo. Although they're only credited on IMDb, on the actual film it's only credited to Fraser Pierce, but I'm guessing they probably wrote it together. Starring Susie Atkinson, Nikki Brooks, Daniel James, and Mark something. I can't really see that properly. Another one where, well, to be fair, this is a bad film. This Bloody New Year has the fucking production value of an episode of fucking Tracy Beaker. It's a rip-off of The Shining, Evil Dead, and Friday the 13th. It's like, and Elm Street as well. Like, it's every fucking 80s.
So there's not
horror.
really any original idea.
No. I mean, they even do the shot of the POV of the monster and stuff like that. I haven't really said the plot, but like, there's these people, like a gang of kids. They have to run away from these people for some reason, some convoluted reason, because they're at a fairground. They have to escape, and they get on a boat. And then they go so far, and then they end up what looks like the fucking island from Lost or something. They come across this fucking old hotel, which is set up for New Year. So that's Bloody New Year, isn't it?
Yeah.
This film does look like it's had been restored, because there's moments where it's all grainy and like.
Is it shot on 16mm?
I fuck knows, mate. Fuck knows. Probably, yeah. But but there's bits where you see like proper film grain, and there's even like a rip in the film itself, and I'm like, it's just nice to be like, well, someone gives a shit to restore these films. The one moment I did like was when one of the women gets punched through the stomach, and it's a shit effect, and then it cuts to her face, and half of her face is like a zombie. It's fucking great, man. Yeah, that's basically it. Like, they rip off an effect from Nightmare on Elm Street. Have you seen Nightmare on Elm Street?
I have, yeah.
You know that famous effect where it's like Freddy and he's like going into the wall. He comes out the wall.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a really simple thing. All they do, they just make it look like a wall, but it's actually like, rubbery stuff. And they do something similar in this, but like, they must have painted it afterwards, because like they go through it and the paint's fucking chipping off, man. But yeah, that's about it.
So I watched Phenomena. Dario Agento film, released in 1985, starring Jennifer Connelly. I think this film was just, it wasn't a mess. It was really, really weird.
It's perfectly normal for insects to be slightly telepathic.
I've seen this before as well.
You have seen this before.
I've seen this before.
You saw it last year, didn't you?
Yeah. Whenever I watched it.
So Jennifer plays this transfer student from America. She's in Switzerland. She starts to realise, well, she always has this weird connection with insects. And it's revealed that she has some sort of psychic power where she can communicate with insects. And I think she realises with the character she meets, played by Donald Pleasance,
Halloween.
known for playing Dr. Samuel Loomis in Halloween. He plays a character called John McGregor. He's an entomologist. Basically, he's into the study of insects, so that's how she knows about her power with insects and that. And she tries to investigate these ongoing murders involving teenagers being killed in kind of hilarious ways. But that's Dario for you. And yeah, that's pretty much the plot, really. The soundtrack I got to mention as well is quite odd, because I've noticed with Dario Agento films, he likes to have sort of heavy metal sort of music. And there's like Iron Maiden, Motorhead.
Oh yeah.
There's
loads of metal stuff.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with it, but it's where these songs are placed in certain scenes and how they contribute. There's a certain scene, and spoilers, Donald Pleasance's character, John Gregg, I think it's McGregor? Yeah. He gets killed by the villain, and the scene after that, his body gets taken in by ambulance. And for some reason, they start playing Motorhead. How does that work? I don't know. He has... Also, John McGregor has a relationship with a chimpanzee.
Yes, man.
Yes.
I love that fucking shit.
And, well, honestly, I think the chimpanzee is probably the best thing about the film. So, the character Jennifer, she starts sleepwalking, and she sees a murder, and, it's really weird how that, the acting, especially because she's sleepwalking, she sees the murder, she reacts, and then she goes back to sleepwalking, and it's so weird. I don't really know, I don't really understand the direction in that scene particularly. The trouble with the film, in my opinion, is that it's very slow. It's it's a bit of a slow burner. There's a bit of padding, especially with the scenes involving Jennifer at the academy. There's a bitchy teacher that she obviously doesn't get along with. It's not really important at all until it doesn't really get interesting probably the last 15 minutes of the film, which is kind of a shame because in terms of replay value, it's not worthy of watching it again. It's just sort of like you have to see it once just to know that a film like this exists and then move on.
I gotta say, the kid's face at the end is fucking horrific,
yes. Man. There's a similar thing in Phenomena that Deep Red does as well, and it's all to do with the villain and how they're revealed. So it's a bit of a Scooby-Doo thing where they sort of introduce the villain, but you don't know it's the villain pretty early on in the film. But what I had a problem with the villain especially is the motivation for these killings, and they never really expressed why she killed all these teenagers in the first place. But there's a bit where there's an inspector character, and he mentions, so the killer likes to basically commit necrophilia. And we don't really get a sense of that at all. It's just one of those sort of things where you kind of have to say it just to provide shock value. I don't know if that was, something that Dario had to put in the film or not. Not too sure. But yeah, it was just like they had like one line to basically pretty much explain the villain. And it was during the bit where the inspector investigates and he goes to this asylum. And this is where the villain originally worked in the film. And something happened with a patient and she was sexually assaulted. which therefore made her suffer with shock and trauma. But it doesn't really explain why she became a killer. It was all because, you know, she just wanted to kill. But then that's the whole thing with the whole son, where she just wants to protect her son and she doesn't want anyone else knowing about her son. But then why kill all these people in the first place? So it's not really developed in a sense where, you know, we get an idea of why these things are happening. It's just sort of like, well, that's just how it is. Just go along with it. Like I said, it's a very goofy film. You've got a chimpanzee that saves the day by stabbing the villain repeatedly. Yeah, you've got, you know, Jennifer's relationship with insects, which comes in as a sort of deus ex machina, how they get rid of the child. But you've also got this weird psychedelic scene. Now, I always would like to see Dario Agento do a sort of psychedelic film, and do you know if he has ever made?
I think he's got one coming out recently, actually.
Okay. It's a really cool sequence, and it goes back to what I was saying about Jennifer sleepwalking. And she starts seeing this weird vision of this long tunnel. It's a corridor, and the walls are at a 70-degree angle, and it's a weird sort of curve. And she sees this weird vision, and we don't really know what that means. It's like you see all these doors on the side, and it's like that never really gets explained as well. But it's just like, I don't really mind that though, because it's what makes the film memorable. All these little details and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just like, maybe you need more time to sort of develop this film properly. Because I do get this sense that he kind of rushed this. Because it does feel like with the ending, that's when the film really does kick in. So with the ending, the last 15 minutes, I just wish that was the whole film. Because it honestly, scene by scene, it just gets nuts, man. So when she tries to escape inside the mansion, because there's a bit where the inspector comes to speak to the teacher, the villain, and she like presses a button, and all these things come flying down on the windows, and it's all like shut and everything. She can't escape, and and then the next scene involves Jennifer trying to reach for the phone, and then she falls in, and then she suddenly goes inside this tunnel, and she wakes up in this weird sort of torture chamber, and like she's essentially in a sort of like bath of like all these bodies mangled up, and it's so weird. And then the next scene involves the inspector in chains, and he basically breaks his thumb just to get out of his chains, just so he could strangle the villain. And then Jennifer gives her the time to escape, and then as soon as she sees the boat, then she sees the son chasing after her with the weapon that was used earlier on with the killings. And then the only time where she actually ever uses the insects is when she basically, I think they sense her being in danger, so they come to her aid and then viciously kill off the son.
That's fucking great, by the way. The way they just eat his face.
Yeah, fantastic, man, fantastic. There's another bit where the lawyer is looking for Jennifer, and this makes no sense. He somehow finds out where she is, where it's at a lake, and then just before he tries to find Jennifer, he gets decapitated.
I'm sure there's a bit where a monkey gets something out of a bin, and he does something like that.
It was a kite.
Are you sure? Doesn't he get like a knife out the bin?
Oh no! It basically goes. It's like some sort of carton or something. It's like some food, and she eats it or something, and then puts it back. That's what it was.
I'm sure there's a bit where the monkey, I'm sure like someone, probably the killer, puts like a knife in a bin, and then the monkey turns up and he gets the knife out the bin and he uses it at the end. Because I remember I
think so. Yeah.
I remember the ending of this film has a really sort of cheesy ending where they're on like the shore and the police turn up.
You're right. Yeah.
The police turn up and then the monkey's just with her. And I'm sure he gives her a hug or something.
Also, there's one thing about Phenomena as well, and it's like you've got this character who has the ability to communicate with insects, and it's not really done. Like, it's not really developed.
Oh yeah, I remember
Like,
being disappointed with that.
It's like there's
You'd
a build up to this sort of realization of, you know, this power she has, and then they never use it up until the end, and even that, like with the child being, you know, killed off by this swarm of insects. Is that it?
Yeah,
it's just like,
that's what I mean.
they could have done a lot more with that.
Yeah, it's like, if you're gonna leave it to the end, at least make it really fucking
Yeah,
cool.
I was expecting like more insect deaths.
Yeah, I was
Like, not with just the son, but with the teacher
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, or
Sure.
maybe like there'd be a big tornado of insects, but
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to think of budget and all that.
Oh
shit.
yeah, definitely. Overall, just it's not an amazing film, but there's so many interesting elements that I think it's one of his best films. I don't think that at all. I do think, however, it's one of those films you have to sort of watch twice and be like, did that just happen? What's this? What's that? You know. Yeah, it's very, very rich film in terms of detail, but not necessarily the plot and the development of certain characters, especially the villain itself. So yeah, that's all I got to say about Phenomena.
Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Very good. Thanks everyone for watching. This was episode 3 of 500. So when we get to 500, we will be stopping this. The channel will get deleted.